Welcome to Middle East Briefing. The content of the briefing includes: what Gulf states want in Gaza. US-UK attacks on Houthis raise war stakes in Middle East amid Gaza conflict. Hamas fights with a patchwork of weapons built by Iran, China, Russia and North Korea. In 100 days, how has the Israel-Gaza war transformed the region? UK's alleged use of Cyprus bases to arm Israel and hit Yemen draw protests. What Gulf states want in Gaza. Foreign policy. The ongoing conflict between Israel and Hamas in the Gaza Strip has sparked speculation about what a day after might look like in the region. Israel and the United States have insisted that Hamas cannot have a role in Gaza's future administration and have proposed the establishment of a multinational force that includes Arab states to govern the area. This has the potential to create geopolitical rivalries between Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates, UAE. Qatar has been a key supporter of Hamas, providing humanitarian assistance and hosting its political wing, while Saudi Arabia supports the Palestinian Authority, PA, and may wish to install the PA in post-war Gaza. The UAE, which seeks to be the preeminent Gulf power, has been proactive in getting aid to Gaza and may be considering Mohammed Dalan, a former Fatah leader, to manage Gaza within the framework of a revitalized PA. Jordan and Egypt, which border Gaza, could also be pulled into Gulf rivalries. These countries have vulnerabilities that could be exploited by Gulf powers eager to play a leading role in post-Hamas Gaza. Overall, the conflict in Gaza could intensify the rivalry between Gulf states and create new tensions in the region. US-UK attacks on Houthis raise war stakes in Middle East amid Gaza conflict. South China Morning Post. The recent exchanges of fire between Yemen's Houthi rebels and Anglo-American forces in the Red Sea are seen by Middle East analysts as evidence that the Israel-Gaza conflict is escalating into a regional war. The conflict will determine whether the ongoing war between Israel and Iran and its axis of resistance allies, including the Houthis, Hezbollah, and Shia militias in Iraq and Syria, will intensify, and it will also test the credibility of the US as a stabilizing force in the Middle East. The US and UK airstrikes are unlikely to deter the Houthis, who have already responded with attacks in the Gulf of Aden. Instead, these strikes will likely play into the Houthi narrative and increase their popularity in Yemen and the wider Arab Islamic world. The strikes are aimed at sending a message to the Houthis that their interference with commercial shipping in the Red Sea is unacceptable. However, the strikes have been met with alarm by Washington's allies in the Middle East, including Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and Oman. The US may find itself dragged into another Middle Eastern war if it fails to dissuade an increasingly militaristic Israeli cabinet from going to war with Hezbollah. If the US cannot restrain Israel, it will suffer a major blow to its credibility in the Arab world. Hamas fights with a patchwork of weapons built by Iran, China, Russia and North Korea. Associated Press. An AP analysis of 150 videos and photographs taken since Hamas' surprise attack on Israel on October 7 shows that the group has accumulated a diverse range of weapons from around the world. The weapons have been smuggled past the 17-year blockade on Gaza, aimed at stopping such a military buildup. The analysis was not able to provide evidence of whether the weapons were provided by the governments of those countries or purchased on the black market. However, experts have noted that many of the images show relatively new weapons, indicating that the group has found ways of getting arms into the Gaza Strip, possibly through tunnels or by concealing them in shipments of food or other goods. The most distinctive weapon in Hamas' arsenal is an Iranian-made sniper rifle called the AM-50 Sayed, which can fire a .50 caliber round powerful enough to penetrate an inch of steel. Although the Israeli military maintains a massive advantage with modern tanks, artillery, helicopter gunships, and a US Air Force of fighter jets, the analysis indicates that Hamas has an array of weapons ranging from small arms to surface-to-air missiles and craft-produced anti-tank projectiles. In 100 days, how has the Israel-Gaza war transformed the region? South China Morning Post. After 100 days of war between Israel and Hamas, there are no signs that the fighting will end soon. The war began after Hamas carried out an unprecedented cross-border attack in October, killing 1,200 people and taking 250 hostages. Israel responded with airstrikes and then a ground offensive, with the aim of crushing Hamas and releasing the hostages. However, Hamas remains largely intact and the hostages remain in captivity. Conditions in Gaza have deteriorated significantly, with over 23,000 people killed, 80% of the population displaced and 25% starving. The war has also had wider implications, with Israeli attacks triggering further conflicts in Lebanon, as well as Yemen, Iraq and Syria. The war has also brought the Palestinian issue back to the forefront and revived the possibility of establishing ties between Saudi Arabia and Israel. With no clear end in sight, there is no plan for what will happen after the war, including reconstruction and how to govern the Gaza Strip. UK's alleged use of Cyprus bases to arm Israel and hit Yemen draw protests. Al Jazeera. Protesters in Cyprus have gathered to protest against the alleged transport of weapons to Israel from a British air base in Akrotiri. The base, which is located 40 minutes flying time from Tel Aviv, has seen a daily increase in flights since the latest escalation of the Israel-Palestinian conflict. While the UK Ministry of Defence has released some information on RAF flights between Akrotiri and Israel, it has refused to specify the cargo being transported. Israeli newspaper Haaretz has reported an increase in the delivery of equipment and arms to Akrotiri from the US and NATO. China FM Wang Yi opens Africa tour with jab at US-led strikes on Houthi in Yemen. South China Morning Post. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi has criticized the US-led coalition for adding fuel to the fire of tensions in the Red Sea and Middle East and has again called for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza and the formation of a fully sovereign Palestinian state. Wang's comments came after the US and its allies launched strikes against Yemen's Houthi rebels. Wang expressed China's deep concern about the sharp rise in attacks on commercial ships in the Red Sea by the rebels. Wang called on the US-led naval coalition to avoid adding to tensions in the Red Sea and raising overall regional security risks. He also emphasized the importance of quelling the war in Gaza as soon as possible to prevent it from expanding or getting out of control. Wang reiterated China's support for a two-state solution and called for a larger and more authoritative international peace conference to be convened to discuss the Israel-Gaza war. Wang held talks with Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi and announced China's third batch of humanitarian emergency aid to the people of Gaza during his visit. The Panama Canal is running dry. Foreign policy. A severe drought in Panama, possibly exacerbated by climate change, has caused major traffic congestion at the Panama Canal. The drought has lowered the canal's water levels, resulting in restrictions on ship traffic and causing delays, increased shipping costs, and uncertainty about the future of the canal. The drought is expected to worsen during the dry season, leading to even more delays and prompting shipping companies to seek alternative routes. However, the Suez Canal, the main alternative to the Panama Canal, is also facing challenges due to the conflict in the Middle East. As a result, shipping companies are exploring other options and considering trade routes in Latin American countries. Panama's economy heavily relies on the canal, which generated $4.32 billion in revenue in 2022. The drought not only threatens the canal's revenue but also Panama's water supply, as Lake Gatun, the canal's main reservoir, supplies half of the country's drinking water. The canal authorities have responded to the drought by implementing tight controls on canal transit and water-saving measures. However, these measures have caused frustration among shipping companies, and there are concerns about the canal's future capacity and reliability. There are also debates about whether to build a new dam and tunnel to pipe more water into Lake Gatun, but this project is controversial due to its potential environmental and social impacts. It is clear that the canal authorities must plan for the future and find sustainable solutions to ensure the canal's continued operation and competitiveness. Just who are the real baddies here? SCMP opinion. The US is employing a tactic of blaming Iran and its proxies for escalating tensions in the region, in order to justify providing more weapons to Israel and bombing Yemen, writes Tariq Ali in Counterpunch. The US narrative is loyally repeated by the Anglo-American media, but the reality is that Iran has done very little so far. The capture of an oil tanker in the Gulf of Oman by Iran's navy looks more like a tit-for-tat response to the US seizing the same tanker in 2021. The Houthi rebels, who are ideologically close to Iran, are an indigenous resistance movement that enjoys popular support and is close to taking over most of Yemen. The US and its allies are alarmed by this prospect. The bombing campaigns in Yemen and Gaza have resulted in catastrophic humanitarian crises, paid for by American taxpayers. The Houthis are exercising their responsibility to protect by trying to stop Israel's genocide in Gaza, and their response has won widespread support in Yemen and across the region. Middle East sovereign wealth funds to diversify China investments in 2024. South China Morning Post. Sovereign wealth funds in Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, UAE, are set to increase their investments in Chinese companies in 2024. State-owned investors in the six nations invested over $2.3 billion into Greater China in 2023, compared to $100 million in 2022. The Middle Eastern investors are attracted to the attractive valuations of Chinese companies, particularly in electric vehicles, EVs, batteries, energy storage, renewables, and industrial technology. Woman killed, 12 hurt in Israel car ramming attack. BBC. A 70-year-old woman has been killed and 12 others injured in a terrorist attack in Ra'anana, Israel. 2 Palestinians from the West Bank have been arrested in connection with the attack. The suspects allegedly stole 3 vehicles and ran over pedestrians in different places. The woman who died was reportedly stabbed by one of the suspects before they took her car and used it to ram into people. The attackers then stole a second car and continued driving into people. The suspects were eventually stopped and arrested, but it is unclear how this happened. Hello, viewers. It's your friendly neighborhood Dr. Six, reporting once again from the intriguing world of 6 degrees. Today, I bring you a collection of news stories from the Middle East, covering topics ranging from the conflict in Gaza to the Panama Canal and everything in between. So, let's dive right in, shall we? First up, we have an article from Foreign Policy discussing the potential geopolitical rivalries between Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE in the post-war administration of Gaza. It seems like everyone wants a piece of the pie, but who will come out on top? It's like a Game of Thrones, but with less dragons and more diplomatic maneuvering. Stay tuned to see how this rivalry unfolds. Next, we have a piece from the South China Morning Post, which suggests that the conflict in Gaza is escalating into a regional war. The recent exchanges of fire between Yemen's Houthi rebels and Anglo-American forces in the Red Sea have raised the stakes even further. Will this lead to a full-blown conflagration in the Middle East? Only time will tell, my friends. But hey, at least we'll have front-row seats to the fireworks. Moving on, the Associated Press brings us an analysis of the weapons being used by Hamas in the conflict. It seems they have quite the eclectic collection, ranging from Iranian sniper rifles to craft-produced anti-tank projectiles. It's like a shopping spree at an arms bazaar. Who knew that Hamas had such diverse taste in weaponry? Perhaps they should consider opening their own museum of war artifacts. In the fourth news story, the South China Morning Post reflects on the 100 days of war between Israel and Hamas. With no end in sight, the conflict has had far-reaching implications, triggering further conflicts in Lebanon, Yemen, Iraq, and Syria. It's like a domino effect, with each conflict setting off another like a series of firecrackers. Can anyone put an end to this vicious cycle? Or are we doomed to witness an endless cycle of violence? Next, we have a report from Al Jazeera that sheds light on the alleged transport of weapons from a British air base in Cyprus to Israel. Protests have erupted in Cyprus, with people demanding answers about the cargo being transported. It's like a game of hide and seek, but with deadly weapons. Who's hiding what, and why? The plot thickens, my friends. In another interesting development, the Chinese foreign minister has criticized the US-led coalition for escalating tensions in the Red Sea and Middle East. China is calling for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza and the formation of a fully sovereign Palestinian state. It's like a diplomatic dance-off, with China throwing some serious shade at the US-led coalition. Who will emerge victorious in this battle of words? Place your bets, ladies and gentlemen. Shifting gears, we turn our attention to the Panama Canal, which is facing major traffic congestion due to a severe drought. The lower water levels have resulted in restrictions on ship traffic and increased shipping costs. Will this iconic waterway be able to weather the storm? Or will it be forced to navigate new, uncharted waters? The suspense is killing me. And finally, we have a tragic incident in Israel, where a terrorist attack has claimed the life of a 70-year-old woman and injured 12 others. The attackers reportedly stole vehicles and ran over pedestrians before being stopped and arrested. It's a reminder that even in the midst of geopolitical rivalries and international conflicts, there are innocent lives at stake. Let's take a moment to reflect on the fragility of human life and the need for peace in this troubled world. Well, my dear viewers, that wraps up today's news roundup. I hope I've provided you with some insight into the complex and ever-changing landscape of the Middle East. As always, I invite you to share your thoughts and questions. What do you make of these news stories? Do you have any ideas or suggestions for future broadcasts? I'm all ears. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring the world of 6 degrees. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.